evening. The July 28th, 2022 tentative budget hearing and board meeting is now in order. I'm happy to welcome my fellow board members and the public. I would like to take this opportunity to remind the public that the appropriate place for public participation in the meeting is during your individual public comment opportunity as identified in the agenda. Outside of your individual public comment opportunity, your role in the meeting is as an observer. Mr. Gibbs, roll call, please.
Ms. Belford?
Present.
Ms. McDougall?
Present.
Mr. Susan?
Present.
Ms. Jenkins?
Present.
Ms. Campbell?
Present.
The board will now hold a moment of silent reflection and invite the audience to join. Thank you. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, at this time, I'd like to offer my fellow board members and Dr. Mullins an opportunity to recognize students, staff, or members of the community who would like to kick us off this evening. Okay, Ms. Campbell.
Well, I wanted to, on tonight's agenda, we are going to be voting to on revised contracts for all of our benefits, insurance, FSA, dental, all those things. And to reduce the amount of time that new employees have to wait before those benefits kick in from 45 days to 15 days. And I know that that was a Herculean effort put forth by Dr. Theddy and her team, Ms. Scipio, all of the benefits staff, procurement, legal. I know, so I think this is super awesome that we can put this out there as we're recruiting. And so it's exciting, and we'll happily vote yes, but I just want to thank all the people who did the hard work behind the scenes to make it happen and to make it happen quickly so that all of our new employees will be able, once we pass it tonight, will be able to be benefits eligible like after 15 days. It's very exciting, good work that was done. Absolutely.
Yes. I just had to echo that because the staff, Dr. Theddy and her staff have just worked so tremendously hard to make that happen in such a quick turnaround. So I had to add to the acknowledgement. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. Ms. McDougall?
So I do have a couple of shout outs for our staff. And the first is I want to give a shout out to Kevin Thornton and the Food Services Department. I was able to go to their cafeteria managers kickoff, and the slogan or the mantra for this year is serving healthy meals, fueling student success. And I just want to say we have an amazing food service department, and they have served so many meals. I don't know the number, but you probably do.
Billions. Over 100,000 just this summer.
Yes. So I just want to thank them all for all the hard work and how much their role is so important to our student success. So I wanted to give a shout out to Kevin and his team in the food services department. I am wearing their shirt, which has this slogan on the back. It's really very cute. So thank you again to Food Services. Then I also want to give a shout out to, there's so many departments here. We've been having job fairs this whole week and probably before this whole week, where staff from across all departments, we're talking HR, facilities, custodial, transportation, I'm forgetting facilities, transportation, food services. Am I forgetting somebody, Dr. Theddy? Thank you. And they've worked as a team, and I was able to go to Titusville and to here yesterday. And we are getting people. I'm very excited, thank goodness. And I want to thank everyone who has worked longer than their normal hours. People stayed here till 7 o'clock or until it was done. So thank you for all the departments and everybody who showed up and made a difference to help get people on board. So thank you so very much.
Mr. Susan?
Oh, okay. Well,
I did want to say thank you to Kevin Thornton for the great program that Kevin puts together. We're very blessed. There's been some misinformation in the news that said that the federal government is cutting programs to the kids that are receiving free and reduced lunch and all that stuff, and it's just not true. What it is they're ending the COVID free lunch that they give the children, and that's a big shout out goes to the federal government for doing that, because we were one of the leading districts in the state of Florida to take advantage of that, delivering, you know what I mean, 2 different locations of low-income homes during civil. I mean, he has knocked it out of the park, and I'm just really proud of Kevin for all of his efforts, and I wanted to shadow your comments. I wanted to say thank you to everybody who's here, who comes in. We love having you guys because you're ready to go, and everybody gives the greatest speeches when you guys come in here and talk about what you're going to do next year, and it's nice to have that, because that's the next step, is to get in that excitement. And I really appreciate that you actually brought flowers for your significant other, and that's a very smart man. If I did that more often, I probably wouldn't be in as much trouble, so congratulations and thank you. And all you guys that brought the kids, you know what I mean? That's our next generation, so thank you for being here today. I also wanted to say that I just got off the phone with the home builders and contractors and the associated builders and contractors, the plumbers and pipe fitters today, and we're going to hold kind of a roundtable summit to figure out how we can identify the children that graduated last year and let them know what apprenticeships are being lent out this year. So I had a lot of family members that contacted me and said, hey, we saw you on the trades. What can I do for my kid? He's flipping burgers at McDonald's. He's on my couch, you know, all these things. And I said, well, let me give the guys a call. So I'm good friends with Associated Builders and Contractors, home builders, and all those guys. So let's just get together. Let's talk about what we can do to notify, to say, hey, there's a lot of post-secondary programs that are career and technical programs, from the college and universities to all the associations. So we're going to get that together, and I'll come talk to you about it. I love making announcements before Dr. Mullins actually knows what I'm doing. The other thing is that so rare. I made an entire career out of asking for forgiveness as a teacher rather than permission, just so you know. So it's just been with me my whole life. The other thing is the Brevard Athletic Association is a loose knit of athletes, former athletes that we're going to come together. We've officially kind of coined, we got the teams, and what's going to happen is football, baseball, track, volleyball, all of them have sort of sub-associations inside the school, inside the county. I'm going to pull them all together and do best practices. And what that means is right now you have, say in football, you have a football coach at the high school level, and then you have these coaches at the Little League level. So many of the coaches that are Little League level are guys that just said, I want to coach my kid, but they don't know what best practices are. They don't know how a kid should tackle. They don't know how a kid should do these things, and it's not their fault, right? So we want to create a vertical alignment of programs to where the coaches at the top are speaking to the ones at the bottom, and they give, and not so much like, here's how you run an offense, but here's how you run a practice, man. Like, how do you keep the kids engaged? How do you keep moving throughout the practice? And then bring in, contacted the FHSAA of all people. Yeah, my friends over there. And they, anyways, the FHSAA agreed to send in the new referee or the head of the FHSAA to talk to the coaches about what the new changes and rules are and everything else. Worst case scenario is when you're a coach out on the field and all of a sudden you realize a rule change that you didn't pay attention to. So it's a really good thing. So, and they're going to host some combines and stuff like that. It's going to be a cool thing. And then I wanted to tell you, hooray, many kids' parents don't know their kids are not registered to vote. And you don't realize that until you start knocking doors as a political candidate, and you knock it, and they're like, I said, hey, they say, oh, we'll get my son to sign it. I'm like, no, kid's not registered. And I don't know if you guys know, but a lot of our kids in this next generation are pretty lazy, and they haven't even gotten their driver's license. So a lot of them don't go out and get their driver's licenses, which is one of the precursors to get voter registration, and then they just kind of roll. So what I did was I requested every kid that's going to turn 18 before this November election, got their parents' numbers and stuff like that, and I'm going to pen a letter to their house. I got the voter registration office to say, hey, the legal way, because gosh knows if you do it the wrong way, they're going to haul you down to jail. But we're going to send a letter out to each one of those families and say, hey, your child is not registered yet. Here's the way you can do it. Here's a QR code. Just click it, fill it out, and go. And if you don't have a driver's license, then here's how you can do that. Great program. You're going to try to drive the voter registration, and that comes from when I was a teacher years ago. As Katie Delaney probably remembers, we had big voter registration drives. There's a lot of politicians up in Titusville that got elected because we drove the students at our schools. We had about 400 votes that actually voted for them. So it's a big project, and I just wanted to let you guys know about it. And if there's anybody that wants to help with it, I'm more than willing to work with you guys. Come on in. It's not a voting thing, so we can do it, right, Paul? Yeah, see? That's the first time he said yes since I've been on the board. He didn't even hear what I said. He's yep, all right. Oh, all right, man. Yep, all right. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Susan. Ms. Jenkins?
All right, so bear with me here. It's gonna be a few minutes. I've had a secret for the past couple of months that I have not been allowed to share. I was sworn to secrecy, and I have officially been given permission to let the cat out of the bag, and I am super excited. Or the tiger, I don't know. So bear with me. I'm gonna take my time here. I've got notes because I don't want to mess this up. So for people who are listening, who may not understand, our athletic programs are minimally funded by the state. And that leaves districts like us to spread a little bit of money across a lot of different organizations and schools. This means our schools have to rely on their booster clubs, fundraisers, PTOs, sometimes outside businesses and organizations to help support those programs. But it also exacerbates a discrepancy between many of our communities. We've got some communities that are able to heavily fund their programs, and we have others that are really struggling. So, the city of Cocoa has a median household income of $39,000. They support their school with pride and service, but they struggle to financially support their athletic programs. They are not able to keep up at some of the rate of our other schools. A prime example of pride and service is they have an assistant coach. His name is Mr. James Falston. He is a former NFL player. He volunteers his time to coach their football team. He refuses to take a salary. He donates financial assistance to the team over and over again. And he donates his time outside of the football field and training as well. They have a team that has mastered conditioning of football players. So let me give you some information here. They won 16 consistent years of regional championships. They have 4 state championships. And 1 year, they had the most NFL drafts in the entire nation in 1 single year, Cocoa High School. Pretty awesome. Just in the last 4 years, they've got some pretty notable players who made it to the Super Bowl. They've got Jamal Dean with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, C.J. Gardner-Johnson with the New Orleans Saints, Javion Hawkins with the Los Angeles Rams. And again, 2 of them were in the Super Bowl the past 2 years. Just last week, somebody sent me an article. We've got a student right now currently at Cocoa High School, Mr. Cedric Hawkins. He was featured in the news as an incredible athlete that's up and coming outside of Cocoa High School, who is currently being scouted for Ohio State. It sounded like he made his decision in that article, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be some other schools scouting him out. So for anyone who knows me, I am absolutely not a sports guru. I was a drum major of a competitive marching band that didn't even go to football games. But this is important to me because it's important to our kids. So when their environment doesn't reflect their worth, I am concerned we send messages that they aren't worthy. And I know that's not how we feel here. I know that's not how Cocoa High School feels. I absolutely know that's not how their community feels about those kids. So I believe it's time that Cocoa Junior Seniors High School athletics facility reflects the quality of student athletes that it serves. So now I'm going to share the fun thing that I wasn't allowed to talk about for months. I had invited somebody to be here. I knew that they may not be able to make it, and I don't see him. And if you're here, please pop up and tell me you're here. But back in January, I got a call from a Cocoa City councilman. His name is Alex Goins. He coaches our track team at Cocoa High School. He reached out to me to complain about the track a little bit. And then he also started having a conversation with me about their weight room. And this is not something that was new to me. I had heard about it over and over again, but I never made my way up there. So I did. I met Alex up there. I met some of the coaches up there. And quite frankly, I was appalled by what I saw. The conditions of that weight room were crazy. They were unsafe. They were absolutely not equitable. They were missing pads. It was dangerous. There was rusted equipment. I actually just took a visit there yesterday with Dr. Mullins, and we were told that one of the bars literally snapped in half when some of the students were using them. So Alex and I began brainstorming, what can we do? So I reached out to a former Satellite High School graduate. He is a good friend of my husband's. He works for ESPN for College Game Day. And I actually just asked him to connect me with those recent players. I wanted to do a fundraiser of some sort to help out. But what happened over the next 6 months is pretty incredible. So I pitched him a story, told him the history of the program, the history of the school, the community pride, the amazing Mr. Folston that is there himself helping out. And I'm officially allowed to announce that this week, over $75,000 of brand new equipment was donated by Academy Sports to Cocoa High School to completely refurbish their entire weight room. They are not missing a single item at all. And I just have to say, this was not just me at all. This started with a phone call from a city councilman who cares about his community, cares about those kids, and genuinely wanted something done, wanted action to be taken place. And so I thank you, Mr. Goins. I wish you could be here. I thank you for making that phone call, because this was so heartwarming. I worked with Mr. Wilson. I worked with now Denise Stewart. Everyone is excited. The coaches are psyched. The kids don't really know about it. The only kids who know about it are the kids that have kind of been in their summer training. They're piled up in boxes right now. Academy Sports is going to come together, put all the equipment together, empty the room, put the room back together for them. It's pretty cool. It's pretty incredible. And I have to say, shout out to our facilities department, because the second I got confirmation that that stuff landed on our campus, I said, we need flooring. We can't put this new equipment in with terrible flooring. And Suhan pulled that off and reallocated those funds that they already had designated for that school to make it happen. So hopefully that'll get done as well before all that new equipment is in there. I just want to say one more thing that Alex had said to me over and over again in our conversations over 6 months, because we were like, how do we got to do this? It's got to come together. And he said over and over again, when good people come together to do good things for the right reasons, they're going to happen. They're absolutely going to happen, because they have to happen, and man, they sure did. So thank you again to Alex. Thank you to ESPN. Thank you to Academy Sports. We're not done. There's another secret that I'm not allowed to talk about. But when they give me the thumbs up to talk about it, I absolutely will. And lastly, when the official date is set for them to come and build that weight room for us, I'm going to be reaching out to all of the BPS community, but also COCO, because we really wanted this to be a COCO community event. So we're going to have community members come in, paint that weight room together, build some community and support and joy around these kids, give it a fresh look. We're in talks with some muralists to put a really sweet tiger on the wall, so I'm probably going to be posting a fundraiser to help pay for that as well. So I'm reaching out to everybody. Let's give a little love to our tiger. Thanks.
Awesome stuff. Dr. Mullins?
Thank you, Mrs. Belford. I want to give a couple shout outs this evening. One to a teacher who we have recognized before, Mr. Bill McGinnis. He is our career and technical education teacher at O'Galley High School for the Aircraft and Aerospace Assembly program at O'Galley High School. He was recently awarded the Florida Teacher of the Year for 2022 by the Florida Region of Air and Space Forces Association, or the AFA. So not a surprise that he is being acknowledged and recognized, but we want to give a shout out to him again for his continued devotion and dedication to an amazing program. He is a game changer for kids. He has 100% placement in the aviation industry for the last 2 years for his graduating students. I have to tell you that Embry Air is first in line every year to tap our kids that are coming out of that program, and that's pretty amazing. And then second, I want to recognize one of our very own that's always in the room with us in the evening, kind of a silent hero behind the scenes, Mr. Russell Cheatham, as our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Technology, our CIO, has been elected for the 2022-23 school year as chairman of the board for FAMUS, or Florida's Association on Management Information Systems. This organization brings together the collection of CIOs across the state, technology leaders, as well as the DOE, and helps chart the path for the vision, the future of technology across our schools. So Russell, not a surprise, you are a leader among leaders. Congratulations. Thank you for representing Brevard.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. I have two pretty quick ones, I think. One, just want to say a huge thank you to Dr. Mullins and all of his team that put together the Superintendent Summit. My days are all jumbled at this point. I think it was last week that we went, right? But really just a great day of focusing and energizing and getting ready for the upcoming year. And thanks to all of our school-based teams and district staff that attended as well, directors and assistant superintendents, the whole team that was there. The energy was great. It was phenomenal and really a great way to kick off the year. So Dr. Mullins, thank you for your vision on that. And thank you to your team for all the hard work to make it come together. Much appreciated. And then the last one that I have is just I talk all the time about the way that our community comes around our schools, and we have so many back-to-school events that are going on this weekend, next week. I know the supply zone, I think, is Saturday morning or Saturday early part of the day. I know we've got a couple up on the north end as well that are community groups that are coming around to provide school supplies and haircuts and shoes and just you name it. And so just want to thank everyone in our community that's working on those types of activities for wrapping your arms around our kids. And making sure that they can start the year on a good footing. So, much appreciated. All right, I believe that is going to bring us to the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Mullins.
Mrs. Belford and members of the board, on this evening's agenda, we have administrative staff recommendations, the tentative budget hearing, which includes a presentation, time for public comments, and 3 items for board action, in addition to 2 presentations, then 12 consent items and 2 action items. Changes made to the agenda since release to the public include the addition of items D13, ad valorem millage update, D14, recruitment update. Also, revisions were made to items A7, administrative staff recommendations, A8, tentative budget hearing presentation, A10, adopt proposed 2022-23 millage rates, A11, adopt proposed 2022-23 tentative budget, A12, authorize the superintendent to take the following action, H29, department school initiated agreements, and H30, procurement solicitations.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. McDougall. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins, will you please let us know about the administrative staff recommendations?
Madam Chair and members of the board, there are 6 items for your consideration.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. McDougall. Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins.
Well, I would like to echo some of Mr. Susan's earlier comments. We have 3 administrative promotions to recognize and congratulate this evening. So I'd like to start with Mr. James Sanders, who is reclassed from the position of teacher at Oak Park Elementary School to the position of assistant principal 10-month at Titusville High School, effective August 2nd, 2022. Congratulations, Mr. Sanders.
Good evening to Dr. Mullins, school board members. I'm truly grateful for this opportunity. To Ms. Gonzalez and the numerous mentors that I've had since I've been here in Brevard. Thank you guys. Last but not least, I would like to thank my wife, Felicia, for 30 years of putting up with me and supporting me. Thank you, and thank you all.
Next, I'd like us to join in congratulating Ms. Lysel. I'm going to try. Patchlow. I practiced too, and hopefully I got close. Reclass from the position of certified school counselor at Anderson Elementary School to now the position of assistant principal at Fair Glen Elementary School, effective August 2nd, 2022. Please feel free to correct me.
Good evening, everyone. My name is LaSalle Petrillo. Dr. Mullins, school board members, thank you so much for appointing me to be the new assistant principal at Fair Glen Elementary School. I am very excited, and I can't wait to meet all the students and to work with the faculty for a great year of learning. I wouldn't be here without the help and support of a lot of people. I'm not going to list everyone, but I am going to start by thanking God for all his grace and mercies towards me and all my family and my friends that have supported me, my mom, my daughter, and my husband, for their sacrifice and their encouragement, to my former principal, Mrs. Harris, for all the opportunities she gave me for leadership, to Christy Miraz, principal of Fairglen, and the interviewing committee. Thank you for choosing me to help lead Fairglen. And to Candy Jones, my former assistant principal, now principal of Audubon, especially because she saw leadership potential in me and encouraged me to pursue administrator role, and here I am today. So thank you all very much. I am truly excited. Go Indians!
Yay. And last but certainly not least, I want to congratulate Ms. Tammy Harvey, reclass from the position of Title I teacher at Riviera Elementary School, now to the position of assistant principal at Riviera Elementary School effective August 2nd, 2022. Congratulations.
First of all, thank you to everyone on the board and Dr. Mullins. I have to say this has been a long journey for me, but today I feel truly blessed. I'm blessed to be able to begin this journey at a school I already love and to be able to work under a principal that I truly admire. So I feel very blessed also because of the amazing family I have sitting in front of me. So I just want to say thank you. I am so excited to be working at a school that I truly believe I belong at. So I'm really excited for the next year, and thank you, everyone.
Again, congratulations, and my thanks and appreciation to the extended families of these men and women who will be serving in the ranks of administrator and continuing to give themselves, their hearts, their lives to serving the children of Brevard. We know that it's a demanding responsibility and it has impacts on the family, and we don't take lightly the support that you have back at your home. So thank you for your continued devotion and dedication to our kids and to the families that support you at home.
Nobody else?
All right, we are going to be moving into our tentative budget hearing. For those of you who joined us tonight for the recognitions of promotion, please don't feel like you have to stay for the remainder of the meeting. I know you have a lot of work to do on your plate. If you would like to stay, you're welcome. I don't want you to think I'm throwing you out, but we certainly understand if you have other places that you need to be at the moment.
Some of them just didn't show up? Is that what it was? Because there's only 3 that went. There's like 6 on here.
Probably out of town and stuff.
Oh, I mean, I understood.
Yeah.
Maybe some of them were not promotions.
Or they're being more laterally.
Possibility as well. All right, we are now at the tentative budget hearing portion of the agenda. Dr. Mullins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, Ms. Cindy Lisinski, our Chief Financial Officer, will provide a presentation on the proposed 2022-2023 millage levy and budget. Ms. Lisinski?
Yeah. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. This is the first public hearing out of 2 to decide the proposed millage or approve the proposed millage rates and the tentative budget for FY '23. The tentative budget was built on our 4 guiding principles in mind: protection of an excellent education, protection of an effective workforce, maintain the fiscal strength of the district, and protection of the taxpayer interest. So tonight's public hearing will include presentation of proposed millage and budget, an opportunity for public comment and board member discussion, a request that you adopt a resolution setting the proposed total millage levy that was set by the state to support the FY23 tentative budget, a request that you adopt resolutions approving the FY23 tentative budget as presented, request authorizing the superintendent and staff to perform all necessary actions to comply with truth and millage requirements, and then we will announce the date of the final public hearing to adopt the budget for FY23. The truth and millage legislation was enacted in 1980 to redirect taxpayers' concern over rising taxes from the property appraisers who do not control the levying of taxes toward the government taxing authorities that set the tax rates. The truth and millage legislation requirements are detailed under Florida statute. Trim timelines are very prescriptive in law, and the clock started on July 1st. The total timeline to budget adoption is 80 days. The statute dictates the order of business during the budget hearings, as laid out in the previous slide, and TRIM requires 2 public hearings for open discussion of millage rates and the proposed budget. Millage is a term that represents the tax rate levied on real estate or property. 1 mill is equivalent to $1 in taxes per $1,000 in taxable value. If your home has a taxable value of $100,000 and you're assessed a mill tax rate, you will pay $100 in taxes. The Florida Education Finance Program is the mechanism by which state and local funds are allocated to Florida school districts. The Florida legislature sets the required local effort millage rates, and the school districts receive their rate no later than July 19th in the FEFP second calculation. The school board must levy the required local effort millage rates in order to receive any state funding under the Florida Education Finance Program. The total proposed millage related to school funding for FY23 school year totals 5.495 mills. This millage rate will generate revenue for the general operating and capital outlay funds. The required local effort rate adjusts year to year while the discretionary and local capital remain fixed. When you compare the FY22 required local effort to the proposed FY23 required local effort millage rate, there is a decrease of 0.355 mills. Therefore, the proposed total millage rate related to school funding of 5.495 mills represents a decrease of 0.355 mills when compared to last year's rate. This reduction in the required local effort from 3.602 to 3.247 mills equates to reduced local tax levy of $7 million when applied to the current tax roll. This slide depicts the historic millage rates over the last 13 years. FY12 is the high water mark. Millage rates have continued to decline each year as our property values continue to increase in the county. As required by TRIM, we must compare the proposed millage rate to the rollback rate. When property values rise, property taxes generate more revenue. For the total revenue generated to stay the same as the prior year, the tax rate must decrease. So the rollback rate rolls back the rate as property values increase. It represents what the rate would be in order to levy the same amount of tax dollars as the prior year. Under TRIM, the rollback rate is the basis for determining if tax rates have increased or decreased. The rollback rate is normally less than the proposed tentative rate because maintaining revenue at the same level as the previous year does not provide for funding new student growth or basic inflationary cost increases. When the rollback rate is less than the proposed millage rate set by the state, we must advertise a tax increase. For Brevard Public Schools, the proposed millage rate is higher than the rollback rate. The notice of proposed tax increase was advertised in the Florida Today on July 25th. This slide depicts the annual certified school property tax values going back 15 years. FY 2009 was the highest annual tax roll prior to the Great Recession. Property values continue to increase each year since FY 13, with the most significant change this year. The required local effort and discretionary millage makes up the district's local operating funds at $240.1 million. And on the capital side, the local capital improvement millage generates $90.2 million at a 96% collection rate. As stated in the prior slides, the board must levy the required local effort in order to receive BPS's total FY23 school operating funding from the state, as the total FEFP calculation from the state is $610.8 million. The discretionary local effort millage will garner $45 million. When combined with the RLE, or the required local effort, we get the district's local portion of $240.1 million, which is 40% of our FY23 FEFP school operating fund. When a school district receives a .748 mils, or the discretionary local effort, and it generates an amount of funds per FTE that is less than the state average of $719.62, the school district will receive a discretionary millage compression supplement that will bring the district up to the state average. In the case of Brevard, our .748 mils generates $596.62 per FTE. In order to get to the state average, the state provided an additional $123 per FTE, which equates to $9.3 million. The local capital improvement millage, or LCI, will provide the district $90.1 million. 37.6 comes off the top and is used to pay the district's debt service, which covers principal and interest payments for previous bonded debt that was issued primarily between the years of 1996 and 2008 to build schools and provide for major renovations at our older schools. LCI contributes $10.3 million towards maintenance costs for labor. LCI also pays for the district's property insurance, which leaves $36.2 million for capital project needs throughout the district. So I taught my daughter last night how to calculate school taxes using this example of a homesteaded home with an assessed value of $100,000. As a reminder, when someone owns property that makes it a permanent resident, the property owner may be eligible to receive a homestead exemption and up to $50,000 exemption. The first $25,000 applies to all property taxes, including school district taxes. The additional exemption up to $25,000 does not include school district taxes. So, back to Madison. She subtracted $25,000 from the assessed value of $100,000, leaving a taxable value of $75,000. Next, I said, okay, if 1 mil equals $1 for every taxable $1,000, how much would be paid in taxes? She's like, oh, that's easy, $75. Then I asked Madison to give me 2 strategies to check her work. She divided the taxable value by 1,000 to get the 75, and she's still working on the second strategy. Now, since the millage rate is 5.495, she multiplied 75 by the 5.495 mils, which equates to $412.13. And she's my mathlete. That's what I call her. So this slide illustrates the changes in school-related property taxes for a homeowner over a 7-year span. In this example, we started with a home valued at $200,000 in 2016 and increased the assessed value by 3% each year, the maximum allowable under Save Our Homes. In 2016, the home would have generated roughly $1,210 in school-related property tax. If the owner qualified for Save Our Homes by 2022 school year, the assessed value of the same home would be $238,810. Based on the valuation, the school-related property tax would be $1,174.89. This is actually a decrease of $35.18 from the 2021 tax year. And across 5 years, the total decrease is $35.41. So what does this mean for families? You can see that $3.21 a day is critical in serving our children's education. It's less than a cost of a fancy Starbucks or not so fancy Starbucks drink per day, and it would pay for a tutor once a week for 1 hour for a struggling reader. So in the last several years, we faced much uncertainty about the economy and how life after the pandemic would look like in the county, state, nation, and globally. Early 2022 has been challenging with massive supply disruptions resulting from the ongoing pandemic and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Additionally, the conflict was a major driver in increased oil and food prices. Job openings across the nation are at an all-time high, which we are all very aware as we prepare to open our doors for this coming school year. This is a long way of saying our proposed budget is our best estimate of revenue against expenses and not money in the bank. We are optimistic about our enrollment, and we will continue to monitor and make every adjustment required to ensure we have resources available to meet the needs of every student. This is a district's total proposed budget in summary form. The general fund is where most operating expenses are paid. Debt service fund is used to pay for the outstanding bonds of the district. Capital projects funds accounts for major construction and renovation projects. Special revenue fund consists of food service, Federal grants such as Title I, IDEA, ARP, ESSER, and schools' internal accounts. Internal Service Fund includes the district's health insurance, property casualty, and workers' compensation programs. And the Enterprise Fund is our Bavard before and after school program. We recommend that the board adopt the proposed FY23 budget.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lisinski. Any board members have any questions?
More
Ms.
slides.
Jenkins? Oh,
So the
I
final
apologize.
public hearing on the FY23 millage and budget will be held on Thursday, September 8th, 2022 at 5:30 at the Education Service Facility, right here. And this concludes my briefing.
thank you, Ms. Lisinski. I apologize for getting ahead of you there.
No problem.
Ms. Jenkins, you had a question?
Yeah, so I actually don't have a question. I thank you for everything that you did. I love that you put real concrete examples for families to see how it would impact them directly. Of course, it's just kind of a rough estimate, and I appreciate that. I just want to reiterate to people who are listening at home or watching these slides that your assessed home value is not equal to your market value. So I know sometimes people are going to panic when they hear that. And so just to give an example, my home beachside is worth probably double in this market than when it's actually assessed by the property appraiser. So if you're curious about what your house is assessed at, you can go to the property appraiser's website to get a real accurate number there. And then I also just want to double down, you said it, but I want to say it one more time. That proposed budget includes federal funds from COVID, and that is not a reoccurring fund. We only have it for a certain amount of time. You have a certain amount of time to spend that money. So just want to double down on that as well. And I know you said it, but I just want to say it one more time. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins. Anyone else?
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you, and I think one of the things that we're not noticing is that every single person in this district who owns their home, not so much anything else, their taxes from the school district are actually going to go down, period. And so when I did my assessed value on my house, I will be paying less this year than I would have last year, even though, and on top of that, the amount of money that, this is incredible. So last year, I paid $2,925 to taxes. This year, even though my property increased with the Save Your Homes Up, I now am paying less at $2,820. And just so everybody knows, many people are like, well, wait a minute, the total assessed value, your mill goes up. How the heck does that happen? Had I not bought that house, because when I bought it, it went from $300,000 to $500,000. When I did that, they were paying $1,600. So my house, had I not purchased it, would pay into the tax at $1,600. But now that I purchased it and it set it up top, it's now paying $2,800, but it's still less. So like the message across to everybody is, you're paying less taxes this year than you did last year for the taxes for the school district. And we don't tell enough people that. Like everybody's like, oh, it's taxes, taxes. You're literally paying less. In the middle of a recession, in the middle of us trying to cover costs for things that we're doing, and they're paying less, just so they know. It doesn't go out there enough. So thank you, Ms. Lisinski. And the other thing, I want everybody to know that the reason we are harbored by this debt is because past administrations, not this one, not a single person on this board has raised any kind of bonds or anything while we've been on here. But it's the past administration from 2008 that really handcuffed us in. And they hit a recession, and instead of really doing drastic cuts, they decided to debt finance a lot of what they were losing. So they were building schools in the middle of a recession. So I think that may not have been the smartest thing, and we're handcuffed by it in our capital outlay. Thank gosh for the half-penny cent sales tax. But I just wanted to let everybody know, if you own your home, you are paying less this year than you did last year for school taxes, period. That's huge. So thank you. And I don't like those other board members that voted in all this debt on us, so just so you know. I know who they are.
Just to follow up on that, and we did have explosive growth during those years, so I can't throw them all under the bus.
What?
But I know.
They need to be thrown under the bus. We're hammered with $39 million in debt.
No, I understand.
Annually.
When we get our annual financial report in the fall, you usually have updates on where our debt stands. I know when we first got on the board, it was $400 million, but we've made those payments steadily. Do you know off the top of your head where we are right now, 300 million-ish?
Not off the top of my head, I can get that to you.
Would you guys this week sometime send us
Oh,
an
absolutely.
update on where we are right now as those payments have got? Because I know the last time I looked, I want to say it was 330.
I think they said,
Yeah, just where we are right now with whatever the last payment were that we made.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I will just, to piggyback on what you said, Mr. Susan, if you go back to the slide on how will my taxes change that show like 2016 through 2022, this is actually the lowest tax rate in that entire chart. So not only is it less this year than it was last year, but it's been some time since we've seen a tax rate this low. And then the other thing that I will point out, and as I have been having this conversation, and I don't mean to mix issues, but I'm going to point it out. If you look at the slide that had our historical millage rates, we talked about the fact that the state continues to roll back our millage rate to ensure that people aren't paying more in taxes. When they started rolling this back, in addition to them taking away the 0.5 mil for capital years ago, but when they started rolling this back, if you look at the peak of 2013 of 8.096, and now we're down to 5.4, had they not rolled back even half of what they rolled back in that time frame, we wouldn't be talking about a millage rate. So I just think that's an important recognition.
And just so everybody understands, they flatline all of our ability to raise anything. It's a good year. We're not charging more taxes, so, but that's a bad year because we need that revenue for.
And then finally, I will just say once again, Ms. Lisinski, thank you for always having such a student-centered focus on, sometimes you can get lost in the numbers of all of this, but you constantly keep it top of mind for us, what all of these numbers mean to our daily functioning. So thank you, we appreciate it.
And we should also point out that Madison is how many years old?
She's going to be 10 on the 6th of August.
I think that's awesome, and happy birthday.
And tell her we nominate her to be Math Lead of the Year, okay?
give her an internship.
She'll love that, actually.
Do you need interns in finance? Because it sounds like she's ready to go.
I'm sorry?
I said, do you need interns in finance? Because it sounds like she's ready to go.
She is, especially budget, because they have candy in there.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
absolutely. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I don't want to go there.
All right, the hearing is now open for public comments. We will, in accordance with Florida law, accept the speakers in the following order. The 2022-2023 proposed millage levy, followed by the 2022-2023 tentative budget. Is there any individual who would like to address the 2022-2023 proposed millage levy? Mr. Hockman?
Good evening, board members and superintendent. First, I'm not sure if I can go down this road or not, so just stop me if I can with the millage.
Stop.
Okay, all right, I'm cool with that. For the millage, that messed me up, man. For the millage, what I would have the conversation start going on to is what entities can receive the millage. So what I was thinking of, and I've been thinking about this for a while actually, for example, the first one would be separate day schools. And hopefully you understand the reason why maybe for the separate day schools, because of the situation that we're in right now, because of that. Because when you think of separate day schools, whether they're profit, nonprofit, they will say to you they have to have a certain number of students in order to basically be level with their finances, et cetera, et cetera. And we can't always go by that because it's unlawful and it's unethical. We can't say there's going to be a certain number of students at a separate day school. But there's things that we can do. For example, talking to those state legislatures, having those conversations about can separate day schools receive the millage, okay, and also the sales tax eventually. Can they receive funding for that? Because currently they cannot right now, okay? So can they receive that? That's one of those things I was interested in talking about eventually with the millage. And the second one, which is going to be more probably controversial, but is private schools. Now, I understand the implications of what I'm saying and what the consequences could be for that, but the reason I brought up, bringing up private schools and having those initial conversations is thinking about how they can support our students. Because when I look at it, some of these kids, honestly, they need, and I'm not a religious person at all, from any means, but some of these kids might need the support of a faith-based program, okay? But I also think if they do that, that private schools should be able to, if they choose to, receive those funds from a millage or a sales tax also. And some people can say, well, you want to keep it church and state separate, et cetera, et cetera. We did the pledge, we had God in it. We have faith-based groups come into our schools. We've had schools actually have on Sundays, let them have faith-based church on Sundays, you know? So that's the reason I was kind of thinking that, because some of these kids just need that support. And we might have to look, like I know there's the whole thing with co-parent. We don't want to co-parent with the government, but some of our parents and some of our families might want to co-parent with God. And they might need that, okay? So I'm just throwing out there, having those initial conversations, you know, and eventually lobbying for it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hockman.
Yeah, he might want to, hey, Mr. Hockman, you might want to go check with Ms. Sullivan. She understands the rules and regulations behind all of the ins and outs of faith-based versus, you know what I mean? She's one of the most in-depth. She carries around the rules and regulations for the Department of Education in a book, ain't it? So you can check with her. I'd have a long conversation with her.
Is there any individual who would like to address the 2022-2023 proposed millage levy? Is there any individual who would like to address the 2022-2023 proposed millage levy? All right. Is there any individual who would like to address the 2022-2023 tentative budget? Is there any individual who would like to address the 2022-2023 tentative budget? Delaney?
Again, I would just ask for the way that the budget is presented to the public to be changed. We don't know where any of the money is going. There's just groups of where the money is going, and that doesn't tell us anything. It doesn't tell us where there may be waste, where there may be things that we're paying for that possibly don't line up with legislation. So we just need more transparency, more accountability, and it's just not there. Like I said at the last board meeting, I was going to be charged almost $400 for a public records request for a relatively small amount of information from the budget, and that's just not right. This is all public knowledge. It should be public knowledge, and it should be easily accessible by the public. You cannot access invoices from anything that that the board has presented to the public. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Delaney. Is there any individual who would like to address the 2022-2023 tentative budget? Ms. Mursky?
Good evening, Madam Chair and Board. My name is Sarah Mursky. I'm a wife, mother of 2 children in BPS, college student, registered voter, taxpayer, constituent, and I live in District 2 for school board. As I have brought my concerns to this board in the past about the millage issues, either a decrease or an increase, I still have many questions and concerns. One thing that I brought to the board back in November was about the inflation at the gas pump and grocery stores, and now we are experiencing hyperinflation. Today, with GDP shrinking in the second quarter, we are now in recession. Also, something that I was told this board told me wasn't happening, but then had to admit that it was happening, was declining enrollment. So I just, I echo what Ms. Delaney shared earlier. We need more transparency in the budget. I've asked for specific, for bids on specific contracts. I haven't gotten that. I'm not paying $400 as a taxpayer to get that information, and taxpayers shouldn't have to. what I feel this board is completely out of touch with the everyday person, especially with people who do not have, are living below the poverty line. We're asking everybody for more money. This isn't a left or right issue. This is a bipartisan issue. This is our tax money, and we don't know where our tax money is going. I voted for a millage increase in Seminole County. I had no problems doing that. I had no problems where the money was going. I saw children well educated and well taken care of. I will be not for the November millage increase. You know, if we have state level issues where we need to talk with our legislatures more about where the money is going, if we need to fund our schools, that is an issue I'd be willing to advocate for you guys on. However, you have lost the public trust in many ways, and I suggest if our children really need that, if our schools really need this money, please work with us and be transparent with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mirsky. Is there any individual who would like to address the 2022-2023 tentative budget? Okay, the public comment portion of the hearing is now closed. That brings us to the recommendations for the adoption of the proposed millage rates and tentative budget. Dr. Mullins.
School board members, there are a total of 3 separate motions for the board to consider. I will read each of these recommendations into the record and request board action. The first is to adopt the proposed 2022-2023 millage rates of, for operating fund, required local effort, 3.247. Local discretionary, 0.748. Capital outlay, 1.50. Total, 5.495.
What are the wishes of the board? Moved by Ms. McDougall, seconded by Ms. Campbell. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. The next item is to, Dr. Mullins, sorry.
That's all right. The next item is to adopt the proposed 2022-2023 tentative budget. General, $679,332,076. Special revenue, $257,474,573. Debt service, $38,002,926. Capital outlay, $337,587,689. Enterprise, $1,492,287. And internal service, $83,435,888, for a total budget of $1,397,325,439.
What are the wishes of the board? Go ahead. Moved by Ms. McDougall, seconded by Ms. Campbell. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins.
And the last item is to authorize the superintendent to take the following actions, which are 3 separate actions. Notify both the property appraiser and the tax collector of the proposed 2022-2023 millage and the following rollback rates. Required local effort, 3.0520. Local discretionary, 0.6338. Capital outlay, 1.2710. For a total rollback rate of 4.9568. Second, notify both the property appraiser and tax collector of the final public hearing on September 8, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. at the Educational Services Facility, Viera. And third, adjust the revenues and expenditures if necessary prior to the final public hearing.
What are the wishes of the board? Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. McDougall. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Prior to the adjournment of this hearing, I must read the following statement. The proposed 2022-2023 millage rate necessary to fund the tentative budget exceeds the rolled back rate by 10.86%. This public hearing is now adjourned. All right, we are now moving on to presentations. Dr. Mullins.
Thank you, Mrs. Belford. Yes, the first presentation will be from, actually, I'm going to, before our budget folks leave, Mr. Susan, I did miss recognizing someone who received an advancement or a promotion this evening.
I know.
And it wasn't in the script, but I've gotten some notes. Ms. Lichtenstein, forgive me, at least I know how to pronounce your last name correctly. But congratulations to Ms. Diane Lichtenstein from the position of Assistant Director of Budgeting, Cost Accounting, and FTE to the position of Director of Budgeting, Cost Accounting, and FTE on an annual contract effective July 29, 2022. Congratulations, Mrs. Lichtenstein. Please forgive me for not recognizing you when we had the masses here. But we know you two are a leader behind the scenes, helping us be our best. We thank you and appreciate you taking on this new responsibility and role. Congratulations.
I think Dr. Mullins owes you
Ms.
lunch or
Lichtenstein, would
dinner.
you like to say a few words? I think Mr. Brune's bringing you the mic.
Yeah.
We didn't want to skip that opportunity for you.
Now she's really mad at me.
Okay.
I was hoping you'd make a recommendation to get rid of the armored car. That's what we were waiting on. No? Oh, I hate that. We don't need it.
All right. Now, thank you, Board. The first presentation, I've asked Dr. Theddy to provide a very brief update, but reference to the ad valorem millage that will be on the November 8th ballot, followed by a recruitment update. Dr. Theddy, Deputy Superintendent, Chief Human Resources Officer, will present both consecutively. Thank you, Dr. Theddy.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to provide some brief information about the millage referendum, and thank you, Ms. Belford, board members, and Dr. Mullins. On April 26th, Dr. Mullins recommended and the board approved the ad valorem millage resolution to forward to the Brevard County Commission for approval and placement on the November general election ballot. That approval from Brevard County Commission was given on May 19th to forward to the Supervisor of Elections. The term is 1 mil for 4 years with initial revenue received in the November-December timeframe 2023. It is limited to operating expenses of the school district as described in the resolution, and it is also shared with charter schools based on enrollment pursuant to Section 1011.71 Florida statutes. The resolution also calls for an oversight committee of independent citizens appointed by the school board that will include annual reporting of the status of our funded priorities, which will be shared in just a moment. As you will see in my next presentation, not this one, but my next one, recruitment and retention of all staff is a priority, and the proposed allocation of the potential millage funds with 80% to compensation and benefits shows our commitment to that priority. Our priorities include retention and recruitment and retention of all staff with competitive salaries, expanding staffing in early childhood, maintaining and expanding career and technical programs, enhancement of art, music, and athletic programs, expanded access to educational programs, and the modernization of classroom technology learning environments. It's also really important to note that our initiatives align with our strategic plan. The alignment, I want to take a moment and talk about that alignment. For Goal 1, academic excellence, to provide every student a learning environment that empowers them to reach their full potential, Objective A2 aligns in ensuring every student is taught by certified, skilled teachers who hold high expectations for all learners. For Goal 2, exceptional workforce, to attract, develop, and retain exceptional talent to impact academic excellence. Objective E1, recruit, Objective E3, retain, and Objective E4 to develop and provide long-term compensation and benefits packages for our employees. For Goal 4, operational sustainability, ensure sustainable district operations that contribute to the success of the academic mission. Objective O1, provide safe, healthy, and fully equipped working and learning environments. And back to the staff for just a moment. As you know, Brevard Public Schools is currently, we have one of the most experienced teacher workforces in the state of Florida, who consistently provide high-quality learning experiences and opportunities for our students. However, national, regional, and local labor shortages are affecting Brevard's ability to serve students as critical instructional and support positions remain vacant, which you'll hear a little bit later. Funding is needed to increase teacher and staff compensation to recruit and retain highly qualified workforce, which ultimately benefits our community and our students. So next steps. We know a high-quality education system benefits all residents of Brevard County, whether they have children in the school system or not. To that end, we are working now to prepare should the referendum be successful. Compensation and benefits for all employee groups must be negotiated, as you know, and will require development and refinement of plans. Given our focus on early childhood education, expanding staffing of early childhood classrooms is paramount, as is maintaining and expanding our CTE programs, enhancing art, music, and athletic programs, as well as the access for students to modern technology in our classrooms. These plans are being developed, as is the charter for the Citizens Oversight Committee. Thank you so much for your time tonight to present this really brief overview of the proposed millage plans. I'm available if you have any questions.
Ms. Jenkins?
Yeah. So again, you stated this, but I just want to reiterate it, and then I'm going to kind of ask a follow-up question. So this will have a proportionate share for our charter schools, correct?
It will, yes.
So if you send your child to a charter school, if you work at a charter school, if you own a charter school, this doesn't only impact Brevard Public Schools, it impacts you as well. And I know we had estimates of the proposal of what we might see. I'm going to give a blanket broad number here. If I'm way off base, somebody correct me, but I think charter schools can see an increase of $5 to $7 million within the first year of that hitting, which is a significant amount of money for those schools as well. So I would love all of the public to hear that loud and clear, because this impacts all of our students across many different learning environments. And so then my follow-up question, because we did have a speaker bring it up and I don't want to be wrong here, our sales tax initiative, are we sharing that with charter schools as well?
I can answer that. Yes, our sales tax that was just renewed 2 years ago by statute required charter schools to receive their proportional share.
Thank you. Again, I felt pretty confident in that, but I didn't want to make a statement without clarifying it. So again, these things don't just help BPS. We're definitely not getting raises up here. It's helping students across all different learning environments. So thank you.
Anyone else? Questions, comments?
Yeah.
Ms. Campbell?
So when I know we're going to get into the details later, but when you talked about that early childhood part of how
Staffing in early childhood.
right, staffing in early childhood. And if I recall, we had talked about before as a board, we were kind of thinking what would we use this for? That would to add like instructional assistance in our early childhood, those early years. Is that still kind of the idea that we're looking at?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Yes, we're still considering that, but to be honest with you, not necessarily making any commitments at this point
Right.
because of the workforce situation we're in. We need to be relevant and mindful of where we are today, or what we want today may not be where we're at when we're talking about a year from now at the earliest.
No, and I understand. So, I mean, just to kind of put that in layman's terms, in other words, right now, if we're sitting with 60 vacancies for instructional assistants, we'd want to add another 60 instructional assistant jobs to be in our primary grades.
But the parameters of the resolution provides for additional staffing. So we'll have flexibility. There won't be flexibility that it has to be for additional staffing, but we'll have some flexibility in terms of where does that end up being most relevant and most appropriate when we get closer to the time that that revenue will be available for staffing, which could potentially be not this next school year, because we wouldn't receive revenue until December of 23, and we've already done our staffing, so it may be delayed a year.
Right. And I'll touch on that in just a second. Just a couple more comments just to wrap up. The Classroom of the Future initiative. We've got one new elementary school in VR Elementary, which you guys have been in there. Just pretty amazing to walk into. And then we have a few of our elementary schools that have had some pretty serious renovations. Saturn, I believe, was one of the ones that through our sales tax initiatives and capital funding or whatever. I think. Of course, the technology side of things, we have some sales tax things, and Mr. Cheatham's department is working on that. But the difference between one school and another school is pretty stark if you were to walk into one and then go down the street and walk into another. And so just the opportunity to have those same kinds of resources, classrooms, honestly, just the way it looks, because you guys know when you walk into an environment that is, people say, oh, well, that's where I went to school. Well, it looks exactly like it did when you went to school there. If you're a parent, some of you your kids are going to the same school. Some of them it's the same. We've been able to tackle some of that, but some of them it's very similar. So I think that's really important to think about. We're getting all those schools that have kind of been left behind in the technology because they're hitting the 30-year, 40-year, 50-year, 60-year, and I think you said something yesterday.
We'll be hitting some of our schools 70 years.
Very soon, right. So, it makes a huge difference. And I know we want the best for all of our students.
And it really accelerates the implementation of that and provides a more equitable response across our district. Because right now we have schools that are using their own funds that they've raised or in the community among parents and so on to kind of inch forward in the Classroom of the Future initiative, which kudos to our ET department for really doing a great job researching and defining what that is so we know what we're working toward. But we want to make sure that we have an equitable implementation of that initiative.
Just my last comment would be really about the timing of all this, because one of the things that has been brought up in public discussion of the millage vote is that, this is not the time, right? The economy, the inflation, and all of that. But I just want to point out, it was mentioned tonight, but I don't know that it was really clear when we had our conversations back in April, because honestly, I had to wrap my brain around it. We're talking about if we vote, if the voters pass it in November, it doesn't mean that your bill that you usually get in the middle of November is going to have that additional. That's not going to come until the bill that we will all receive in November of 2023, which is not due until March if you wait and don't get the discount. But until March of 2024. So we're talking about an impact to our community. And I'm an optimist. I like to say we're all going to be in a better place, with everything. I know optimists don't always get their way, but we're going to be at a better place then too. But, in the meantime, our employees are also dealing with the impacts of all those things, the recession, the home prices, the inflation, the gas, groceries, all of that. So, but I just wanted to make sure it's really clear with the public, hear me say this, the impact of the millage, whether we pass it, if it's passed, is something that we will not really receive until a year and a half from now, really. And it's likely, Mr. Susan mentioned that this year's taxes are actually going down, right? A little bit at least for everyone. It's likely because the legislature does it every year that they'll do it again. And so all of that, the impact of that is yet to be seen. So I always want to make sure that the right information is out there, the truth is out there, and not just what everybody's running away with because we're getting a panic.
Can I just tag off the technology conversation real quick? So I also, I appreciate you bringing that up, the discrepancies between some of our schools. And I just want to put this out there too, because we do have some families that are probably listening and feel like, well, we have this at our school. But there's a lot of amazing community partnerships that have done an incredible amount of service, providing some of that technology to our schools or donating money so that technology can be purchased. But there's something else we have to think about. We have to think about replenishing that technology. The lifespan of this technology is like 6 years maybe nowadays. They don't make them like they used to. So that's something we really need to think about. That's a big, huge impact on schools that they can't take over that load on their own. And another thing, it's not just great for the students, it's also really great for recruitment and retainment of staff. Because if you're a new college grad who came out of college learning all these amazing ways to engage your students with all these different kinds of technologies, and then you come to a school that still has a whiteboard on the board, or God forbid, a chalkboard, you're not going to want to go work for that district. You're going to want to go work for another district that has innovation and technology that you've been experiencing over the past 4 years. So there's just many different things to think about when it comes to technology improvements within the school system. It's not just for kids to put their hands on iPads. So thank you.
Good observation, Ms. Jenkins. And if I can just tag off of what you and Ms. Campbell both said, obviously it's that time of year where we're out speaking to a lot of people, and I had the opportunity last week, not this past week and the weekend before, to speak with one of our former teachers. And she's a young teacher, and she left Brevard County and she went to Orange County, And she said, you know, one of the big things is they have one-to-one technology, and it makes it so much, it just takes a lot of stress off of the teaching and the classroom management and so many different things. And so I echo, we need to do what we can to make the jobs easier, because they definitely are uphill, challenging jobs each and every day. And then to your point, Ms. Campbell, I think it's also important to point out, you know, we've talked over the years significantly about how the way that the school looks impacts the way that the students feel about their school, the pride they feel in their school, and the same thing for teachers walking into a nice building. But I think we also have to be honest with ourselves in that if you're a company looking to come to Brevard County and you drive around our neighborhoods and look at our schools, it doesn't look like a really enticing place all the time for you to bring your employees. And so I think there's benefit to, you know, the overall enhancement of the condition of our schools. So I just didn't want to let that go unrecognized. Anyone else have anything for Dr. Theddy or Dr. Mullins on this one? All right, thank you, Dr. Theddy.
Just to give a preempt to Dr. Theddy's presentation next, I thought it appropriate to provide to the board and even to our community just a update on where we are with our workforce situation, as it is first of mind for all of us as we soon open our doors, but also open our hearts to our kids coming back in a couple of weeks. So I asked Dr. Theddy to provide an update and kind of make sure we keep things in perspective as we manage some vacancies and moving forward. So Dr. Theddy, please.
Thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to give an update on what we've been doing, not just in HR, but really district-wide. This is not an effort that can be taken just by human resources. It is a cooperative effort of everybody in this school district, and we have seen that over the last, especially 4 days with our career fairs. The coming together of people has been amazing, and it has reaped rewards. So I'm going to start with, you know, what's driving our work, what is driving us to have another presentation about recruitment, because we did just talk about this, I want to say 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago at the last board meeting. We do have persistent vacancies, and we have a desire, obviously, to ensure that every single classroom in our school district is staffed with a fully qualified teacher, and not only every classroom, but every school and department is also fully staffed with the ancillary support personnel that drive achievement as well. While the numbers really look daunting on the screen, and they are, there are targeted schools where we are and have been providing concentrated efforts to staff that account for the greatest number of vacancies. So, you know, we talk about priority 2 and priority 3 schools. We look at those schools in particular and then look at the schools that have the highest vacancies. And 2 of our schools have high vacancies, and they're not a priority 2 or priority 3, but they are targeted raise schools as part of the state definition of raising achievement. So you'll hear about those schools a little bit later. But you have to know that the efforts have been intentional, and it's also important to note that none of this is new. We didn't just decide last week that we need to have career fairs. We've been doing them. We've been doing them prior, even during COVID, we were handling them virtually. Not with the greatest of success through that method, but we've been, for the last 3 years that I've been in HR, we've been really hitting the career fairs hard. It's not the only thing we're doing, so I'm going to take you through some other things. Team HR has been working with all departments and divisions in the school district to address vacancies for the last several years, as I said. There was a time when we really focused primarily on teacher recruitment and teacher retention and teacher fairs, and we realized that we needed to do a lot more outreach to our support personnel as well. And we have a wonderful support team: food nutrition services, transportation, custodial, and facilities. I'm probably going to leave somebody out, and I hate to do that, but they are on board for everything we want to do. And we've been working closely with them to facilitate career fairs as well over the last few years. So I do want to note that when you look at these vacancies, we actually have 59 schools that have 0, 1, or 2 classroom vacancies. I'm talking, you know, classrooms with kids. We do have some non-classroom vacancies in those schools, but 59 of them, as of Saturday, July 23rd, when I pulled the data from the most recent survey, have 0, 1, or 2 vacancies. 6 schools have 3 vacancies, and there are 15 priority schools that have between 4 and 14 vacancies as of Saturday. We actually have made some movement with a couple of those schools last 4 nights. I don't have all the updated information, but We are very hopeful, and our principals are very hopeful that they've been able to attract some quality candidates at our most recent fairs. In anticipation of a growing need for staff of all classifications in the school district, we began targeted recruiting efforts last summer, going back to actually not last spring, but the spring of 21, with custodial, food services, substitutes, and bus driver fairs that have continued over this school year. In fact, transportation, if you didn't know it, they run pretty much open hiring fairs at all of their transportation depots. They provide beacon support. They will help people. You've seen their advertisements everywhere. Food service does the same thing. They participate in the fairs that we facilitate, but then they also participate in community job fairs as well. Our staff in HR participates also in teacher fairs that are sponsored by colleges of education and universities. We've also made a lot of changes this year to remove some barriers to people applying for jobs. We have removed barriers for hiring managers, and some of that's included in an initial entry pathway. Instead of everybody being the same, we recognize some positions are really initial entry kinds of positions. So we have made some updates, and you guys all approved those updates in February, at the February board meeting. We updated policies and procedures. We put a process in place so that resumes can be uploaded into Beacon for those positions that require resumes, so that hiring managers don't have to solicit that information from the employee through email, and it makes it easier for everybody. We removed the email response from previous employers regarding, oh my gosh, lost my train of thought, I'm sorry, regarding references. And we've put in a process where they put the contact information for their previous employers so that we can call them, and we, being the hiring manager, can call them. That was a barrier for a lot of people. They would send out the email to their previous employer, and their previous employer would not respond. And that would hold up their application in HR for quite some time. So we have eliminated those barriers. We've updated job descriptions for clerical and other classifications to bring the requirements more into the job that we have now, rather than the job that existed when the job description was created. And that's made a big difference for our hiring managers too. I won't go through all of the fairs. I think you guys know the fairs, but I wanted to just make sure you knew that we've been conducting these all throughout the year, different venues, different locations, different modalities. Some are virtual, some are hybrid, some are face-to-face. It has made a difference, not the big difference we want yet, but it has made a difference. I think something that's really important to mention too is we believe in the concept of growing our own, and IAs are one classification of employee where we really focused on growing our own. We also have developed career pathways for other classifications of employees so that even if they're not on a trajectory potentially to become a teacher, they do have a path that they can advance in their own career, and they can see advancement opportunities within Brevard Public Schools. The IA to teacher pathway, and I have the spoiler alert, I just have to tell you, over the last 2 years, 97 IAs have become teachers in Brevard Public Schools. That's a pretty big number. We did an event this past year that was really, I really want to take a minute and talk about it. We've done a lot of outreach with IAs, but the event that we did starting in December that culminated in a session with IAs in February, we gave all the principals postcards to give to their IAs, inviting them specifically to this event, and it was an IA to teacher pathway event. Some of our principals took a step further, and they wrote personal notes on these cards. And the impact that that had on those instructional assistants that came to our meeting that night was impressive. I heard a lot about that. And I wanted to mention that because that's a little thing we can do that doesn't cost any money, that means a lot to people. And it was really critical. So we've reached out, I've emailed the IAs that came to our sessions, provided them additional support, I've connected them with the right staff, and we have people working on their degrees. We have people that are attending college. We had Eastern Florida and University of Central Florida there as well to assist. And it has made a big difference for our IAs. We've conducted Zoom sessions on how to become a teacher. We've talked about certification. We've worked through the PDCP program with them. And I feel like that is an untapped resource because we have such high quality staff in our schools that are aspiring to be teachers, and providing that little nudge of support has made a big difference. I'll say that number again, 97. That's pretty good. Some other recruitment efforts, I won't read them all. You heard this in the last presentation. We are working with the NAACP and the Brevard Alliance of Black School Educators to promote our hiring events and to promote our openings and vacancies through their social media platforms. Our partners in GCR have been great at sending out Blackboard messages to parents to invite them to hiring events, because that's an important resource too. People may not realize that we have opportunities that don't always include full-time work. Some people don't want full-time work. We can accommodate substitute work. We have part-time positions. So we think that's also an untapped resource. We're also working with our military partners, the DoD Skill Bridge. We've been analyzing the new legislation related to military veterans, and we actually have somebody in the pipeline right now on that process. So to this week, we did a large-scale recruitment effort that we haven't previously done. Previously, we've been at ESF. There's a huge barrier to having career fairs at ESF, and that's transportation. So we took our show on the road, and I'm going to show you at the end of the presentation how many people it took to make that work. And I'm talking about human resources, secondary and elementary leading and learning, student services, educational technology, finance, GCR. I'll look back there, make sure I didn't miss anybody. Operations, the whole operations division. It took a whole village to make this happen. But I do also want to say that as of 5:40 this afternoon, the last time I got an update, and I don't have another update on my phone right now, but as of 5:40, we are tonight at Clear Lake and at Bayside, and the numbers at 5:40 this afternoon for the whole week were 211 prospective employees. That's pretty impressive given our success with other fairs. That's pretty impressive. Not only did we have staff at these hiring events to work with Beacon and to make sure people got their applications, we had principals and assistant principals interviewing. We had directors doing substitute interviews. We talked to people who just came in and said, I don't know what you have to offer. We talked to them, told them what we had to offer, looked at their interests, tried to connect them with principals that could best help them. We focused on priority schools, I will say that. For this week, that was our focus. We only invited those schools who were Tier 2 and Tier 3 priority schools because we need to fill their vacancies. I was at Titusville High School one night this week, I don't remember which night, and we stayed pretty late working with a young graduate who wasn't sure what he wanted to do. And at the end of the day, he decided he was going to take a certification test so he could teach at Coquina Elementary School. Miss Lovelace was really excited. She sent me a picture the next day. He came in to do his paperwork, and she was really excited. Even though he has to start out as a substitute, we have the supports in place to help him out as he goes along. I do have to take a moment, though, and since I have the microphone, I don't know what Dr. Mullins will say about this, but I have to give a shout out and offer my sincere gratitude to my HR team, because I will tell you I've cleaned out HR. Every single one of them has been working these fairs, but we haven't shut down our operations and human resources. We've had key staff stay behind. I had April at the front counter today, sitting there tonight working through clearing Beacon applications while she was on the phone with staff I have at the hiring fairs, making sure we're getting everybody cleared as they come through. I have to just take that moment because they really came together and dropped everything and made this happen. But I also need to take the opportunity to thank my colleagues in the back of the room because they also offered staff. They themselves came to the hiring events. We had board members at the hiring events as well. But they offered their staff to come and do onboarding paperwork and to help people with Beacon. They offered translators for speakers of other languages. It really was a cooperative effort, and I'm really grateful for the entire BPS team and how they came together, especially this week. This has been a tough week. It's pre-planning for schools. Principals were more than happy to open their buildings to us. Satellite High School hosted a fair this week, and they hosted both new teacher academies this week as well. I'm just really thankful, and I wanted you to know that because it was a cooperative effort. Something else that we're trying, back in March, I think it was March or April, we were at a United Way Education Forum, and I connected with some community members who wanted us to come into their churches to talk about opportunities. So we are doing that. I don't know how many people, we haven't taken the data on how many people we're going to end up impacting with this, but I took an opportunity, especially this past Sunday, to not just talk to people about employment opportunities, but to also talk about other ways they can support Brevard Public Schools. Because like I said, not everybody's looking for a job, but I can tell you everybody's looking for a way to support. And that was really a positive affirmation of how invested our community is in our schools. So we are working through that. The community outreach has been positive and valuable, and this has been something that's been on my radar screen for quite some time, just was a little bit slow in getting together. So we've got some other events planned. Some of the different faith-based churches are willing to let us put advertisements in their bulletins. They're willing to have us come speak, and others are just willing to let us man a table, and anything is fine with us. You all know about social media. You're reading everything. You can see the things that GCR has put out. You can see the things that HR has put out. We are, the schools are doing a fabulous job of putting out their advertisements as well, and we are sending them out to the wider network, trying to make sure that we can attract as many qualified candidates as we can. We've even gone to some paid social media ads because that does get a broader audience. So before I go on to this one, I just wanted to tell you something else that I have to brag on with HR, just because I have the mic. Our conversations in HR revolve around priority schools, and they revolve around assisting principals and secretaries. We're not perfect. By no means are we perfect, but we've made a lot of progress in clearing candidates as expeditiously as possible. I have provided HR staff opportunities to substitute in schools, to attend field trips like the Moore Center field trips this year, and to proctor FSA, because I really believe it's important for all of us to remain connected to our mission. And sometimes it's easy in the role we're in human resources to not be as connected because we don't see the day-to-day operations. And so I'm happy to say that my staff, my HR staff, has availed themselves of those opportunities, and we have made sure it's not been at any cost to service to schools. But I really appreciate that the work never stops, but they are connected to our mission, and that is really important. So Eastern Florida, we had a list of AA graduates and BABS graduates, and we have reached out via constant contact with the AA graduates because there are 2,100 of those, and we don't have the staff to call all of them, but we did phone all of the BABS graduates from Eastern Florida. But before I go there, I'll talk about the AAs. We've had Zoom meetings with them. We have another one set up. I believe it's tomorrow at 3 or 3:30 for anybody who's interested in any of the opportunities that we have. If they're interested in talking about a pathway to a career with BPS, we're talking with them about that. That has made a difference. With the BABS, again, this was a cooperative effort. My staff couldn't make all these phone calls. People sitting along the wall back here, they allowed staff to help us make those phone calls. We developed a script for them. And we actually had, at last count, 67 of our Eastern Florida graduates who wanted to participate in some webinars about being a teacher in Brevard County. And so we have one set up tomorrow. And then I believe we have another one coming up in August 4th. And then we also had one already for people that responded to our email. We had 12 graduates on that particular call. It was very engaging. We had certification. We had professional learning and development, our recruiters. I was on the call. It made a big difference for those people because they had a connection. They had, even though it was virtual, they had a connection with us. We're working on former eligible BPS teachers that have left the system for whatever reason. There are lots of reasons people leave, but they were not yet vested with FRS, but if with another year or 2 or 3, they could be vested. So we're working through that. The level of data is a little bit problematic because we just have the home addresses, so we're mailing information to them, and we've set up a meeting with them on August 4th. We've already talked about this. Pending approval, the waiting period for insurance for new hires will be reduced from 45 to 15 days. This is really critical in my mind because I have heard this as a barrier for people. When they say I have to wait 45 days and I'm coming here with a family and they may not have availability of any other coverage, that has been a barrier for some. And so eliminating this barrier is pretty exciting to me. You know, healthcare is vital, and connecting our employees with our wellness programs and providing them benefits in a little more expedient manner, I think will make a difference as well. Substitutes. All substitutes have been made aware multiple times through multiple modalities about the new pay rates for subs. And I can tell you we got a lot of feedback about that. All positive, all positive. We have it in all of our promotional materials. We have it posted on our website. We have a new substitute program. It's called Red Rover. It is a whole lot easier to use than SmartFind was. Even I can use it, and I have it on my phone, and teachers can leave lesson plans just using their phones. Substitutes can pick up jobs. I can monitor fill rates right from my phone. So we're really excited about that. And actually, we saw a few substitutes come through our career fairs who said, I've already signed up on Red Rover. I can't wait. I just wanted to hear what else I can do, in addition to substituting. We are making phone calls also to all 1,100 active substitutes, and we're starting with our most prolific substitutes. We have some substitutes who work for us every single day. We're making sure they have picked up jobs for the beginning of school, and I have done robocall, for lack of a better term, but a welcoming call to all of our substitutes. I'm going to follow that up next week with another call, and then finally, right before school starts, the night of August 9th, I'm going to send out another call, just thanking them so much for their participation and their assistance with the first day of school. Let's see, there's a lot we've done there, so I'm not going to go into it because I feel I might be getting the hook. So I won't go into everything with substitutes, but we are giving them a differential. They're in a priority school, $20 a day for Tier 2 and $25 a day for Tier 3. That made a difference last year, so we're doing that again. I do want to take a brief moment and talk about orientation. Orientation is not just a recruitment technique, but it is a retention technique, and we've gotten tons of positive feedback from everybody. I open every single orientation session every single week. Mr. Gibbs participates, Student Services participates, Labor Relations, Benefits, Retirement, GCR, Customer Care, Financial Services. We take them from hire to retire in 4 hours, and the feedback has been amazing. I just want everybody to know it is not lost on me how much effort that takes on the part of staff to make that happen. But it was a dream of mine that we would have face-to-face orientation and we'd be able to connect with our employees in that way. And it came to reality in October. So I'm excited. We've changed it from Fridays to Wednesdays, but we are going to continue. And just so you know, we have had, just since June, we had orientation like the second or third week of June. Through now, we've had 208 teachers and 93 support staff attend just in that time frame. Wow. And then going out to the new teacher academy this morning, and I know Dr. Mullins was at it yesterday, welcoming all of those new teachers was invigorating and exciting too. I won't spend a lot of time talking about this. We have ongoing efforts. You heard about them a couple of weeks ago, but just so you know, I do have staff that reach out to people who have incomplete Beacon applications. I have staff who monitor and target schools and send people who meet requirements to those schools to interview. They work with the principals. They reach out to different colleges and universities and places to find employees, and they vet them for the priority schools. They don't vet for everybody, but they vet for priority schools to monitor and assist our schools with getting high quality employees. So there's 3 slides here, and these 3 slides are all about Team HR and Team BPS. This is the group of people that made this week happen. And I have everybody's name on here, and I want to give everybody due consideration. So it's not in any particular order, but this includes school staff, principals, secretaries, cafeteria managers, custodians, assistant principals. It includes district staff from all of the divisions. It's a huge shout out to the power of the team. I do have to give, though, a specific shout out to a couple of people. Katie Benny, Mike Alba, Tori Huss, Susan Kirk, Lisa Hyam, and Elizabeth Torres are really the ones who coordinated the entire process. They were responsible for finding the schools, for making sure all the tables were set up, for making sure we had all the equipment we needed, that we had all of the computers we needed so that we could do the Beacon applications with people. So I want to give them a special shout out. It was one of those events where I said, wouldn't it be nice if we did this? And they said, oh, wouldn't it be nice? And yes, we're doing it. They were very excited, and they have been working really hard. I think this is my 3rd slide. But you can see the number of people that participated in these fairs, and I just want to tell all of them how much I appreciate them. think that's it. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time tonight. It was a little longer than I had anticipated, but I just want you to know we are on it. We are working together as a team, and we will persevere, and we will have a great school year. I'm confident.
Can I ask a question? So one of the things we spoke about before, Dr. Theddy, was the Eastern Florida State College pipeline from teachers into our program that keeps getting cut by UCF, right? UCF has said, like I said before, they have vetoed every time we've had an application. And I was thinking the other day, I was like, why are we still dealing with this, right? And you said that they're going to reach out and they're going to do another application. Is that what you said?
Eastern Florida is always looking to expand their education.
So they're going to put in another application to expand it?
I don't know what they're, I don't want to overstate where they're at.
Sure. We're losing them to Orange County. I'm looking up here at the trends of the enrollment for UCF. It's increased thousands over the last 10 years. They are not decreasing. They are increasing. There's no reason why they would veto, because of regional effects, our stuff, other than they just want our kids. So I think I got really mad because I'm just like, we just keep coming back to the situation, and it may have helped a little bit had I been a little bit more forceful 2 years ago. So I'm going to work with you, Dr. Mullins, and I really want to try to push them to try to make an application, because we got kids coming. I started the program. I was one of the 5 teachers that started the program in 2008, I think it was, at Space Coast for the teaching program. And it was one of the ones that were on the wheel. And I started it because I believed in it. And then I see the kids going, and then they go to college, and then they go to their first, and then they finish up over UCF, and then they go over there. So it's not just me saying this because of the current crisis. It's just been happening since, so I just think it's something that we need to address. So I wanted to say that. The other thing is okay, we're doing all this stuff, and you are way out ahead of other districts. I was in Pasco County today and Pinellas County today with some of their school board members, and they have numbers that are worse than ours, okay? I have a lady who came to visit me, one of my close friends from Africa. She teaches overseas, and they have the exact same problem in Africa. And I applaud all of those efforts. My question is what do we do in the event that we still have 50 vacancies at the end of the whole thing? What is the plan? Are we deploying people from ESF to cover? Like, what are we going to do?
So we are working through all of that, and we met as a team, and we generated some solutions. Some of them we have to work with others in order to implement. We have already, to address part of what you said, we've already allowed substitutes to pick up vacant jobs. We put them all in there instead of waiting. We put them all in Red Rover, and that was my first call. Please pick up jobs at our schools. Not that we want to have the teacher in the classroom, but if we don't, we have that plan. We do have a pretty decent fill rate already 2 weeks before school starts, so that's impressive. We do have some other plans in the works related to classes, class sizes, and working with our schools to mitigate the problem. And I know Dr. Sullivan has been working closely with her elementary team and Jane Klein and Tara Harris, I'm sorry, with her secondary team. Sorry about that. You just got transferred. Jane Klein and Tara Harris also have been working with the elementary team to look at what the staffing is in the school, because sometimes we're sitting on units that we don't need to sit on, or we have classes that are really small that we can combine before kids even get here. So we're working through those too.
That's great. One of the things, I know you want to jump at the opportunity there, Dr. Mullins. One of the problems we have with discipline is that if we have students that come in and they don't have a classroom, right, then those students regularly, when you have a person that's inside there that's not a full-time teacher or whatever it is, it makes it difficult for the teachers that are the next classroom. So like if you have one for discipline issues, right, when we have our principals coming in to cover some of the classes, then you have the breakdown of that piece, right? So I applaud everything you're doing, Dr. Theddy. You guys are amazing. Like, what you're doing is far above what everybody else is doing across the state. And I just hope everybody understands that it's going to be all hands on deck when that happens, because of we don't fill them, what happens. So, Dr. Mullins.
Yeah, I would just not just say that is the case, that we have an example of that. If we remember this time a year ago, we had more vacancies than we had ever experienced going into the school year, and we were confronted with hundreds in the employment ranks of quarantines. And what did this organization do? We rallied. It was all hands on deck, and we filled where the needs were. And that will be the case again this year.
Yes.
And we're in pre-conversations about how to do that effectively and proactively. And we're working closely with primarily the schools that have, I think Dr. Theddy may have understated the impact. When you look at the big number, it can be rather ominous. But we're talking, we have 15 schools who are probably in the most critical range of vacancies, and that's where we're focusing our efforts and prioritizing district time and staff to address those. And not to neglect the other schools, we're going to keep working with them as well, but that's where we're prioritizing our efforts. So I'm confident that as we have in the past, we will once again stand in the gap for our schools. I will echo, I personally spoke to at least 2 superintendents of like-sized districts, and no less than 50 more just teacher vacancies, and as many as 150 more teacher vacancies in those districts as of less than 2 weeks ago. So I attribute the effort and the work of Team HR and Team BPS to make the reality that we're not where we want to be, but we're a lot better where we could be. Particularly in terms of where other districts are, they're facing the same struggles. So my congratulations and sincere appreciation to the team as well.
Ms. Belford, if I can just add 2 thoughts on that. First of all, it's okay that you took this much time, because considering that we're 13 days away from the first day of school, and we're in crisis mode, this is the most important thing that we have to focus on, and so we needed to hear that update. The community needed to hear that update. And what I would add to the pages and pages of names of all the people that help is all of Team BPS can be part of that. When we have conversations with people who don't look like they have anything better to do with their lives, we can say, hey, I know somebody. Would you like a job? I've been doing it pretty regularly myself, but we're all of Team BPS can be a part of that, recruiting your mother-in-law or your whatever, your neighbor to come be a sub, to consider being a bus driver, to whatever it may be. We all need to be a part of that. And I'm just going to add, and sorry for the sermonizer, sometimes we're our own worst enemy when we have people who are part of our organization who, for whatever reason, disgruntled. When we make that, especially social media, I see it regularly. Oh, BPS is a horrible place to work for. First of all, I think that is the small minority, and we have the exit interviews to prove it. But we're doing ourselves harm. Are we a perfect place to work for? Maybe not. Do we have our problems? Yes, we do. But there are some really great opportunities, and we have got to be everybody in this organization, I believe, needs to be a recruiter, because we're, a teacher who's recruiting other teachers is really helping themselves, helping their building, because if they have fewer vacancies in their building, then they have less classes they're going to have to cover, and they're going to have better discipline behavior in the building, because they're not going to be working with a classroom that has a different teacher every day, because it has to be filled by a sub and all of that. So I just challenge all of Team BPS to really, and I'm so thankful for our churches and our nonprofit organizations that are helping us with these efforts, but we all have to be on this effort so that we can get there. And I'm really proud of you guys, but I just want to add to those pages and pages more people who are really jumping on the effort. So thank you for what you're doing.
I'm going to be super quick. I just want to do a shout out to our substitutes who are stepping it up. Like you said, you and I had a conversation about how they're already filling those vacancies, so that most of our schools are going to have some kind of support system in the first days of school this year, which is really comforting to know. And of course, we want a certified classroom teacher in all of our classrooms. But I've also been speaking to some principals that have already locked down some long-term subs for those vacancies that they just feel really confident are very likely going to be difficult to fill. And they have amazing substitutes who have already stepped up saying, I'll be a consistent person for these kiddos. So hats off to those substitutes who are already making that commitment. I really appreciate it. And just throwing it out there for people who might want to consider that as well. And I just want to say, job well done with those hiring fairs. I appreciated being there. I personally appreciated talking with staff members I've never met before. That was fun for me. but also my own father stopped by one of those job fairs because he's technically challenged, and he is transitioning from one position to just go back to substituting, and he really, really needed that support with Beacon and everything and all the paperwork, and he had nothing but positive things to say. He said it was really smooth, and he was so happy and pleased with how kind everybody was to him. So thank you for that, and thank you for everyone that participated.
Dr. Theddy, I think you know what I'm going to say, but when I was at the job fairs, the energy in the room was really exciting. And again, I can't thank the whole staff who showed up and stayed late for all the work they did to help us be the best that we can be. So thank you to the whole team, Team BPS. Thank you.
One thing that you mentioned, which I think is really important, was the personal notes from the principals. And we heard tonight when we were promoting our assistant principals, there was a comment that, and we hear it just about every time, right? That so-and-so encouraged me to go into an administrative path. So-and-so encouraged me. And I think that is so critically important that, you know, as Ms. Campbell said, we can all be recruiters. And so, you know, the fact that our folks are looking for those opportunities to encourage people to take a path, whether it be, you know, going into teaching or becoming a substitute or all of those things, I think sometimes we get in our head that this is our path until somebody says, hey, I'd like for you to think about doing this, right? So I think that's super important. And then one, I guess, kind of question for you, Dr. Theddy. You mentioned the substitutes and the things that we have done around that, and that the one new graduate was becoming a substitute at Coquina with the hopes of becoming a teacher. So we've talked about the IA to teacher pipeline, but we haven't really talked about what are our options for our substitutes to potentially become classroom teachers.
So that's a great question. It's actually something I had in my notes that I skipped. We do have a process. When we do those substitute interviews, my Lisa Hyam, as she watches those interviews and gets the feedback from the people who help her do those interviews, if they have a bachelor's degree, she reaches out directly to them, and she works with them, connects them with our recruiters, and tries to work them through that pathway. Not everybody's interested, and that's okay. You know, we're happy that they want to be subs, but that is one pathway. We have had some different virtual programs for our substitutes, but we haven't done a concerted, you have a bachelor's degree, we want you teaching, other than our reach out when we do those interviews. And you've all mentioned word of mouth. Shockingly, that's really important. The word of mouth is really important. I've heard from more people that they got a phone call or their neighbor was talking up BPS and they wanted to come by and see what it was like. It really is important. So thank you all for mentioning that. But substitutes are an invaluable resource. And I'll tell you, the other invaluable resource are our principals. I don't think I gave them enough shout outs in this presentation. They are rock stars. We didn't tell them to write personal notes. Some of them did. And so I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just close with echoing the sentiment, you know, having been around for a while, and so I've seen this trend multiple times, right, of the start of the school year and our gaps and all of that stuff. And I know you obviously thankful to all of Team BPS, but I am confident in saying that this would not have happened without your leadership.
Thanks.
We are incredibly appreciative of that leadership, along with all the people that come alongside you to make those things happen. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are moving into public comments. Board members, do we need to take a comfort break before we? So I have a request. We'll take about a 10-minute recess and then we'll come back. right, we are now at the public comment portion of the meeting on agenda items. We have 2 speakers signed up for agenda items, although I believe Ms. Mursky left. So we have 1 speaker signed up for agenda items. Ms. Delaney, if you would like to go ahead and approach.
Good evening. I would like to speak about the proposed millage and the way that it was brought through the county commission. It was snuck onto a zoning meeting, and the public had no knowledge. So that was pretty crappy.
Ms. Delaney, hold for just one moment. Mr. Gibbs?
Different millage.
We talked about the millage inside the presentation. Yeah.
The millage
Okay,
update.
So we're, okay, just wanted to make sure. Go ahead.
So, and even though it goes to charter schools, until we see a transparent budget, I don't believe you should be asking the taxpayers for more money. I have to leave, so I'm just going to finish what I want to talk about. I was at the superintendent meeting on Tuesday, and this board decided to cancel the final meeting for the 2nd and have it and hold it after the superintendent meeting on Tuesday. One of your board members was not notified, was not called. The public was not notified or called. Sunshine means something. These things deserve to be in the sunshine. And I've asked previously that these evaluations be recorded because nobody knows about it. The board evaluation, nobody knew about that. Superintendent evaluation, nobody knows about that. Mr. Gibbs' evaluation, nobody knows about that. The only reason why some of it is known is because I went and recorded it. Please be transparent. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Delaney. Yeah, so just to clarify for those who were not present, we actually started the superintendent's meeting with the superintendent's evaluation meeting with the statement that there was a conflict on our second date and that the intention was to complete the superintendent's evaluation on that day, and if we were able to get through it, to deliver it to him that afternoon, or whenever we finished going through the evaluation. So that is, I believe, in the minutes of the meeting that were taken that day with Tammy. So. And we were all there, except Mr. Susan did have to leave, and there was a miscommunication that Mr. Susan apparently thought that he was going to be called, and my understanding was that he was fine with not being there for that portion, so which I have apologized to you, Mr. Susan, for that miscommunication.
No, it's not, and I just told Gibbs, I said, hey, next time it happens, we just have a process in place that if there's not a board member there, just give them a call. And it was at the beginning of the meeting, we did say if there's an opportunity to call Dr. Mullins back, you know what I mean? And I did say that I had a hard stop at 11:30. The only thing was that I only had 30-minute meeting, and then I could have come back. I didn't know you guys were going. I was calling Mullins, and I was like, hey, I didn't know what was going on. So we've got it corrected, and I think we're in a good place.
Super. All right, so that is going to move us into the consent agenda. Dr. Mullins.
There are 12 agenda items under the consent agenda.
Does any board member wish to pull any item from consent? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Campbell. Is there any discussion?
No.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins, will you please let us know about the items under the action portion of today's agenda?
Oh, my gosh.
The first item is H29, Department School Initiated Agreements.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, seconded by Ms. Campbell. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins?
Come on, man. Come on.
The
go.
next item on the agenda is H30 procurement solicitations.
Let's
I
go.
was totally lost. Thank you, Mrs. Buffer.
What are the
Yes,
wishes of the
That
board?
is correct, H30, procurement.
Hear a motion?
Second.
Moved by Ms. McDougall, seconded by Mr. Susan. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion passes 5-0. We are now at board member reports, and I have a note here from Mr. Susan that he has 3 topics. Does anyone else have any?
Very quick.
All right, so Mr. Susan, the floor is yours.
All right, so there's a couple of things that last minute today it just came on. So the FHSAA decided that they are going to take and make girls and boys wrestling separate. Okay? Now, as a former wrestling coach, I will tell you that it's very rare that every team has a female wrestler. And so in order to give the girls, women, and in many cases strong women who beat the boys, an opportunity to wrestle, they would wrestle the boys. And it's such a high lightweight class that it's a pretty good matchup sometimes because they're in like the 110s, 103s, and I'll be honest with you, my year that I was coaching in 2008, we took the team undefeated. I had a female wrestler, and she came with me, and I would put her in and have her wrestle all the time up against the boys. And then at the end of the year, there's a female tournament. She ended up winning states, right? So she would never have been the student that or the wrestler had she not had that opportunity. And so what we ended up doing is FHSA separated them for whatever reason, but we did not, because of the last minute, because they're the Good Idea, they're part of the Good Idea Ferry Club. They did not let us know in enough time so that we could let our bargaining unit put together a stipend for them. And so I was just going to let you guys know that I'm going to ask Dr. Mullins if there's a way that there's only 4 schools that have a female wrestler. And I would hate to have a situation where they're inhibited because they are not a part of having their own team, if that makes sense. Because what happens, just so you know, is that everybody's like, well, they're all wrestling together. Yeah, you can practice together, but when it comes down to a meet, if they can't practice to wrestle each other, and you're going up against a school that doesn't have a female wrestler, and maybe they're not even in the same weight class, then she won't wrestle. And that's just really not fair to our girls. And then it's also not fair to the team to have boys, say your head coach and your assistant coach, one of them leave to go coach because now the boys team, and there's a serious security risk with wrestling because they wrestle and then they go off, and tournaments are like, you know what I mean? You have to have all hands on deck. You should have two of them there. So the idea is that if there's a school there, that I'll just talk to Dr. Mullins, what can we creatively do to fill that stipend gap until we can come back and negotiate it? That's all. So I'm going to mention it to him. That's all. I don't need board approval or anything. You guys can object to it. I don't think you would.
I kind of heard rumblings of this, and I'm just, what was the impetus behind separating them out, and why do they have to be, is the reason for the separate events because there aren't enough girls at any one particular tournament and they're not going to let them wrestle?
If you are asking me what the thought process of the FHSAA is, I would tell you from decades of knowledge of there being none sometimes that's it. But it's probably along those lines. You know, I'll be honest with you, I think there's just a need there. We only have 4 of them, you know, and I don't want our girls to not have an ability to go do that. And I have a great story. She ended up going into like the Marines, and she was pretty bad, you know what. So, yeah, she was like G.I. Jane. I mean, she was tough.
I can see Dr. Mullins, he's leaning in.
Oh, what do you got here? Wait a minute. This is now Paul said yes to something, and now I see a smile on one of my requests here, Dr. Mullins.
Well, I don't think there'll be ability for us to say no, because my understanding is that Title IX will require us to provide a coach to girl wrestling teams. So we'll have to work on that and get there. So
what is work on there and get there, Dr. Mullins?
Well, if Title IX requires it, we'll have to provide a coach. So I think I've addressed your.
So do we have to go back to talk to somebody, another group, and get that through the stipend?
Through bargaining?
Yeah.
I would suspect, probably eventually, but Title IX is a federal regulation. I mean, it's a requirement.
And wrestling season doesn't start until November.
Correct.
Just so you guys know. So there's time.
So I have a silly question.
Yeah.
Well, I have 2 silly questions. One
It's
is,
getting really weird now. He
has,
says yes, he's on board, you say something
But
silly.
is the stipend broken down male, female? It probably isn't, right?
well, that was my first question, is does the bargaining language just list wrestling and a stipend, or does it list male wrestling?
Mm-mm. It just says head coach, assistant coach.
Yeah.
So when we were wrestling, we would
So-
have them wrestle with us. So we coached both.
So I think Dr.
but
Mullins'
it
point is
wouldn't-
we're going to have to appoint a female wrestling coach, and it would
Yeah.
automatically fall under the current bargaining language.
Perfect.
Was, right? So then my other question is FHSAA mandating that they be split?
Mhm.
So it can no longer be a,
Not allowed to wrestle each other.
wow, okay.
Mhm. Yeah, which, I will tell you that it is that the female wrestlers do better with wrestling with boys again, and they're just not going to have enough. Like, I don't even know how they're going to do it. The 4 teams that actually have it are going to have to travel.
How far do they have to go to get in?
Well, they
Well-
usually do them like poinsettia, hold one, and they'll be able to work it out. There's something probably brewing. By then, they can have the 4 of them in Brevard, and I don't know. They'll figure it out. Coaches are good. I just wanted to be able to address it before it became an issue, that's all.
I'm a little, when Dalen wrestled, there were females that were wrestling at the tournaments against the boys. It was a non-issue, so.
It's never been an issue. I mean, it's honestly, and the wrestlers are collegial about it. It's a great thing, you know what I mean? They use the separate bathrooms. It's not an issue there. It's legit. Like, it's kind of sad. But they're doing some other things that I don't agree with. I mean, whatever, it's the FHSA. So.
Dr. Mullins, I think you were looking like you wanted to say something.
I was just going to say I had a solution to one of Mr. Susan's problems ever before he brought it to me as a problem. So it's just, I think that,
You're just pointing it out?
Yeah.
You're saying it wasn't a
For the record.
We're on it.
All right, good.
All right.
What do you got next? What do you
Good
got
idea,
next?
fairies.
Oh, good idea, fairies. Okay, so everybody knows that many of our teachers are the paperwork, the requirements. Up in Tallahassee, every year they add another series of requirements to our people, whether that's students with disabilities, paperwork, whether that's expulsions, whether that's bully packets, whether that's all that stuff, right? And it's enough's enough. Because what's happening is that there was a debate, there was a serious debate a couple years ago where they were saying, well, if we have too much recess, then we're going to reduce the amount of time that the teachers have to teach in the classroom. But then when the same mentality comes, when they're trying to put together all these requirements on our teachers, they forget that the more that they have to fill out all of these forms and all of these things the way they are, it reduces the amount of time the kids are in the education, which is in being taught, which is the sanctity of our system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally start trying to look at everything to see if there's a way that we can reduce it, because I feel like we could get a huge win by making a recommendation to the legislature to put more time in the classroom by reducing some of the things. There might be changes to the bully packet that we can make recommendations to. There might be this, there might be that. I say we go there. And like, God knows, I mean, how many school fires have there been? But then we have how many of these fire drills, right? And think about those days that we lose. Think about the disruption that occurs because of that. And then trying to get the kids back on track. And then it's just, that's all. So I'm going to go there. That's all. Letting you guys know.
Awesome.
What's my last one?
Let us know how we can help. 403B.
403B, 401Ks. All right. And just so you guys know, I only have about 2 years left on my term. So I'm like, I got to start getting stuff done, right? It's why you keep hearing about the armored car, because I'm going to keep trying to go at it. But here's the thing, the 401K, 403B, 457s. We have 22 providers right now, okay? So here's what happens. I'm a teacher. I start out, I'm 22 years old. I come in, and what ends up happening, I get a valid guy comes in, and he says, and this has been something that I brought up before and went through, and I kind of let it go, but I'm done with that now. He goes and he gives, and the teacher says, yeah, I'm going to invest in you. So they start putting $50 away with this VALIC account, and they still do it. And then teacher gets a couple of raises, and then all of a sudden the Lincoln Financial guy comes over and says, hey, you should invest with us. And they're like, oh, I can put another $50 over there. We have many teachers, including my wife, who has multiple finance accounts that are not combined and are actually losing money compared to what they were combined, right? There's another thing that goes on. All of those 22 403Bs and 457s are all at different point structures. So some of them are 1 point, some of them are half point, some of them are all that stuff. So what I would like to do is just, I don't have to, I'm just going to request it. I just want to let you guys know. I'm going to request what the investment, what the basic commissions are on every one of them. And then I'm going to pull that, and then I'm going to look at trying to make a recommendation to you guys to reduce that down to 5 and possibly 1. Because what ends up happening is that if you do that, then they will lower the amount of points that they charge with the larger percentage. It's just like we do with anything else. And we have this whole other system that goes against what I'm saying, and I'm going to take it on. So, all right? We good?
Sure. Anybody else have anything?
That's it. Just combine all those 401ks and 403bs.
Dr. Mullins?
I do want to provide the board the assurance and the reassurance and the listening community. There was a reference made to our submission of an agenda item to the county commission agenda. I am 100% confident it was submitted as appropriate according to the county commission rules and guidelines. I personally spoke with county commissioners, all of them, prior to that meeting and the submission of the agenda item, and know for a fact that they all knew that our resolution was going to be on the agenda that it was going to be on. So I don't want there to be any suggestion or belief that we didn't submit an agenda item appropriately. Their legal team, Mr. Gibbs can affirm that their legal team is the gatekeeper to their agenda, and validated that we went through all of the appropriate processes. What the county commission's notification to the public is about their meetings, that's their process. We don't have any influence on that whatsoever, and I would not begin to know what their requirements are, but I know for a fact we submitted the agenda item long before the due date for the anticipated meeting, and that it was not a last-minute agenda item, not even a correction to the agenda like we have to do periodically. It was regularly notified and published. So I just want to provide the board that assurance, as well as the listening community, related to the resolution that had to go through the county commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. I just want to say too, I personally saw it on their website on the agenda. I don't know when they posted it because they have a whole different system than we do, but it was absolutely on there, 100%.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anything before I move into final public comment? All right, we are down to 4 speakers for non-agenda items. So each speaker will get 3 minutes. We have a clock in front of me to help you keep track of your time. When your time is over, you'll be asked to stop and allow the next speaker his or her turn. We'll hear from the speakers in order in which they signed up. As stated earlier, reasonable decorum, actually I don't think I stated it because we had only 1 speaker, but reasonable decorum is expected at all times, and your statement should be directed to the board chair. Should audience participation interfere with the speakers being heard or hearing me, I'll be forced to clear the room. I don't think that's going to be an issue this evening. When I call your name, please line up along the east wall. Since we only have 4, I'm just going to go ahead and call all 4 of you, if you don't mind. Michelle Beavers, Christina Brown, Rebecca McAleenan, woo, and Carrie. Michelle, whenever you're ready.
Okay. I sent an email to all of you the 19th of this month and hadn't received a response from anybody yet. In my email, I have 3 problems that I have a solution for, and I hadn't gotten any feedback at all. The first one is Genderqueer, which you all agree was not a good book for our schools. There is not a do not buy list that we have in our schools yet. So how do any librarians coming into the position, or any librarians that are out there who don't know that you don't want them to buy this book, how is that going to work if they don't have a list of books that should not be bought? Also, this book is gay, that was only in one of your libraries and was lost, was talking about how to give proper blowjobs and how to go on an app and find people locally that you can have sex with. I would assume that we don't want that book in our library. Why is that not on a do not buy list also? You have that information because I sent it to you last time, what that book's all about. The next thing was, it's going to take 7 to 8 years probably to get through the list I gave you of 9 official submitted books. I think that's a long time for those books to be on shelves if they're bad. So other counties have taken their books and put them at least behind the librarians so that they have to opt in to check them out. I don't think that's an unreasonable thing for us to do. If you want to keep the books in the library for any reason until you get around to vetting them, why not put them at least behind the librarian shelf and have parents decide if they want their child to read those books? And that way they're not still out and causing damage to children 7 and 8 years down the line when you know that there's probably a problem. Librarians get $3,400 a librarian to buy these books with. I would like to ask that you have some kind of system where you publicly post what these librarians are going to be buying before they purchase them. Give us a chance in these sunshine laws to see what they're going to be purchasing, and if we have any issues, give us two and a half weeks to decide, hey, this really book needs to be on that list, or we have a concern about it, instead of just having these books circulate back into our libraries because you have no list of do not buy, and you have and your current guidelines of telling the librarians what to pick didn't work so well with some of these books. Some of these books found their ways into our libraries anyway. They can't possibly read them all, I understand that, but we have parents willing to make sure that some of these books don't get on our shelves, and to at least alert you and let you know these books are bad or have concerns about them. And I have not heard from anybody, Mr. Mullins, all the board members, nobody has bothered to respond to this email about solutions and how we could work this out. And I'm kind of disappointed that nobody's even bothered to say anything about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Christina?
I don't have an email.
Not that I've seen, no.
Hello, my name is Christina Brown. Thank you for letting me speak. I am a graduate of Astronaut High School. I am obviously a former Brevard County student, went to UF afterwards, and then now am a business owner of 2 brick and mortar businesses here in Brevard. So I want to tell you guys thank you for the work that this board, even the previous board, the one that spent all the money, while I was in school, which it was very overcrowded, not so much Astronaut, but at Titusville. So I appreciate the work that you guys do that is very difficult, especially in the face of a very small but very vocal and loud group that sometimes is not speaking for the whole community. And as a business owner in this county, I appreciate the work that you do to ensure that our community is forward-thinking and that we will try to stay out of the news as one of the book banning counties. So I would appreciate if you continue to stand strong against some of these other groups. And I truly hope that some of the trouble that we've had in the legislature that has filtered down to be an issue in our county, where we're looking at banning classroom libraries and our book fairs, that we can find some legal loopholes to be able to still have those, because I feel that teachers in the classroom, they love their teaching and they curate those libraries, and they're a labor of love. And I know when I was in school, I always appreciated, because I always finished early, being able to go and grab a book off the shelf. It also helped all the kids that were kind of troublemakers. The book teacher could say, go get a book. And so not only were they staying out of trouble, but they were also increasing their reading level, because I don't care what book you read, even if it's one that you consider trashy, you are still increasing your reading level, which will translate later into greater skills and able to read technical things. Every word that you read in school will help you, whether it's a very high-level book or a low-level book. It all increases it. And as an employer, I know I need all of my employees to be able to read well. And I know that as we continue to bring in these high-level employees in the tech companies, they are looking at our schools, and they are not going to want schools that have book bans. So I encourage you to continue to fight back against those and find creative solutions so that we don't have those. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Christina. Rebecca?
Well, I didn't plan on piggybacking on hers, but I've spoken to you before about this. My name is Becky McEleenan. I'm a native of Brevard County and a product of Brevard County Public Schools, as well as my children and my husband. My granddaughter starts kindergarten this year. I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours in classrooms, almost 30 years worth, both here in Brevard as a volunteer, an instructional assistant, classroom teacher, substitute, as well as schools around the world as an Air Force family. I've worked in almost every area of the school except the cafeteria. I'd like to take a moment to speak about the assumed unintended consequences of recent legislation pushed down to school boards across our state. Currently, there's a lot of discussion about books in classrooms and schools. A well-funded national political organization has been promoting the lie that our schools are teaching pornography. In my nearly 30 years in classrooms, I have never, ever seen a teacher say, okay, kids, circle time, Mary's going to do the weather, Joey's going to do calendar, and after that, we'll continue our in-depth discussion and reading of 50 Shades of Grey. It just doesn't happen in any shape, form, or plan. No teacher wants to have any kind of discussion like that. The books that are being targeted are not only not taught in classrooms, they're rarely even checked out or available in the majority of our schools. But this new narrative that there is some newly uncovered ideology of porn and grooming has taken hold and made teachers fearful of the very likely and proven backlash from this vocal, angry group of parents who espouse freedom and liberty while threatening our schools and fueling fires that only exist in their circle of influence. Whether it is rumored or true, and I hope it's a rumor, that there won't be any book fairs, can we imagine for a moment what a book fair-free school system would look like? Do these liberty people realize they're literally taking funding from classrooms and schools with their continual ranting about pornography and book censorship? Are they aware that thousands of dollars will not be available to classrooms and schools without this beneficial event? Do they consider the students who will get a new book at the book fair, and it literally may be the only new book they receive all year? Do they care? I don't think they do. Do they know that a well-read student is a successful adult? Did they forget that reading is imperative in every area of school and beyond? Do they understand even a tradesman must be able to read? Do they not grasp that tearing down the very establishments that provide a community's education is like burning down the garage, but not realizing that your house will burn as well? I just want to say there are plenty of parents in this county that do not subscribe to this ignorance of attacking books in schools. We are not afraid of books. We will continue to fight back and speak power to the truth. Schools are not partisan. Teachers are not the enemy. Ignorance is. Thank you for your time, school board members, and your willingness to serve.
Thank you, Rebecca. Carrie?
Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, and Dr. Mullins. My name is Carrie Gerace, and I wanted to take the opportunity to introduce myself as the new chair of Moms for Liberty Brevard. I'm looking forward to a productive year where we can work together on advocating for all children while protecting parental rights. I bring to this position the unique experience of being a parent of 3 BPS graduates, as well as being a former teacher here in BPS. With this experience, I hope to bridge many of the misconceptions, as we've just heard with the last 2 speakers, in this community about the mission of our organization. Moms for Liberty members are moms, dads, grandparents, and community members that have a desire to promote liberty and stand up for parental rights at all levels of government. In closing, I wish all of our teachers, administrators, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, custodians, office staff, all of the dedicated professionals that it takes to run a fantastic school, the best of luck as we launch into the 2022-2023 school year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Carrie, and congratulations on your new position. All right.
Ms. Belford, can you let Dr. Mullins reiterate the fact
Classroom library.
classroom libraries? Can we just,
And
Mullins,
book fair.
would you like to speak to that? Because there seems to be like this thing out there.
Yeah, I'll draw the board's attention back to Ms. Klein's update, I think 2 weeks ago.
It was. She went all the way through it.
Yeah, there was misunderstanding among my understanding some elementary folks about book fairs. We are continuing to evaluate that. We believe that there is a reasonable opportunity for us to meet our requirements of the statute while still providing book fair opportunities to our schools and our kids, and there's no reason for us to consider any kind of banning. We will have a responsibility to review the book lists that the book fair companies will be bringing into our schools through our media specialists, but I suspect that's part of the process we've always had in terms of the vendors that come forward. So yes, I provide the board the reassurance in our community that we don't anticipate any reason why we can't move forward with book fairs for our students in our schools as we work closely with those vendors to provide the opportunity available, as well as book libraries in our classrooms, so.
And I think it's to be said that it's not anybody's fault for being misguided. There's been a lot of social media and a lot of articles that have been written that aren't completely out there that are true. You know what I mean? And that's unfortunate. So I want to thank Dr. Mullins for saying that, just to clarify that, you know what I mean, that there's some misguiding out there in the community, which is driving people into these frenzies, and, you know, go to the other school board meeting and watch it. That's all.
Right, yeah, that's a good point, Mr. Susan. And you know, what I've been telling people is we just have to get the right process in place to make sure we're protecting our people, because that's the real issue, right, is we don't want to throw them into the fire. And so when you have a system this large, you have to figure out a process and get it into place. And so, so thank you, Dr. Mullins, for that clarity. Anything else before I gavel us out for the night?
Any cat posters? All I care about.
All right, this meeting is now adjourned.